7 Key Misconceptions About Evolutionary Psychology. The Jungian conceptual image of a large stone in the shape of the human brain. Evolutionary approaches to psychology hold the promise of revolutionizing the field and unifying it with the bio. But among both academics and the general public, a few key misconceptions impede their application to psychology and behavior. This essay tackles the most pervasive of these. Misconception 1: Evolution and learning are conflicting explanations for behavior. People often assume that if something is learned, it's not evolved, and vice versa. This is a misleading way of conceptualizing the issue, for 3 key reasons. Misconception 1: Evolution and learning are conflicting explanations for behavior. People often assume that if something is learned, it's not evolved, and vice versa. This is a misleading way of conceptualizing the issue, for 3 key reasons. First, many evolutionary hypotheses are about learning. For example, the claim that humans have an evolved fear of snakes and spiders does not mean that people are born with this fear. Second, learning is made possible by evolved mechanisms instantiated in the brain. We are able to learn because we are equipped with neurocognitive mechanisms that enable learning to occur, and these neurocognitive mechanisms were built by evolution. Misconception 2: The products of evolution must be present at birth, or must emerge very early in development. A second common misconception is that the products of evolution must be present at birth, or, at least, must emerge early in development. But this is not how natural selection works. It builds adaptations that come online during the developmental phase in which they are needed, not just adaptations that are present at the arbitrarily selected moment of birth. Teeth, breasts and facial hair illustrate this well. They are all uncontested products of evolution, yet are not present at birth. To develop properly, the products of evolution often require certain forms of environmental input. A point that leads directly to the next common misconception. Misconception 3: Evolution implies genetic determinism. No matter how widespread the belief, an evolutionary approach to psychology does not imply that behavior is genetically determined. There are 2 ways to appreciate this point. First, like all other life scientists, evolutionary psychologists subscribe to an interactionist view that states that everything in the mind, body and brain is jointly co-determined by genes and environment. Second, an evolutionary perspective emphasizes the centrality of the environment, pointing out that it is crucial at every phase of the causal process, the initial evolution of adaptations, their development across the lifespan and their triggers in the immediate present. Misconception 4: If a behavior varies across cultures, it is not a product of evolution. This idea makes intuitive sense, but nonetheless misses the mark. The problem is this: evolutionary thinking does not suggest that behavior will be uniform across cultures, but rather that the neurocognitive machinery that produces behavior will be uniform across cultures. This is a very different claim. But the actual language you learn depends on where you grow up. Misconception 5: Evolutionary psychology doesn't pay enough attention to individual differences. There is some truth to this idea, especially if you turn the clock back 20 years. Evolutionary psychology began with a focus on species-typical mechanisms and sex differences. At first glance, individual differences, especially heritable ones, appear more challenging from an evolutionary perspective, and it took researchers a while to start tackling the subject in earnest. Seminal early attempts included papers like this one, this one, this one and this one. Misconception 6: Evolutionary psychologists think that everything is an adaptation. This canard just won't die, though it is tenable only if you read misinformed critiques rather than the actual primary literature in the field. In their published writing, evolutionary psychologists frequently state explicitly that evolution yields 3 kinds of products: adaptations, byproducts and noise. Beyond this theoretical statement, researchers also propose hypotheses about byproducts and conduct studies on byproducts. For example, here and here are 3 conceptual papers that explicitly reject the notion that all aspects of our psychology are adaptations. Misconception 7, the evolutionary psychological hypotheses are just so stories. It's much easier to maintain this misconception if you don't engage with the primary literature in evolutionary psychology. I've discussed this misunderstanding here, but would like to address it again for a broader audience in this essay. For those who aren't familiar with the term, just so storytelling refers to the unscientific process by which a psychologist notices something about human behavior, concocts a convenient explanation for it, in this case, an evolutionary one. For better health and well-being, keep watching and sharing. For more videos, subscribe our YouTube channel, Wear Your Energy, and press the bell icon.